Are you looking for inspiring conversations about faith, film, and life? You're in the right place. Here's the host who knows the right questions to ask, Father Edward Looney.
Hey everybody, it's Father Edward Looney here. Grateful that you're tuning in for another week of the podcast, whether you're listening through audio or tuning in now on the YouTube channel as well. Happy to bring conversations with different personalities in Catholicism, the film industry, lots of different avenues that we talk with people as they are walking their journey of life and making you aware of some of the great resources that we can take advantage of to deepen our faith. And also just, when we talk about film too, just to enjoy life as well, but looking for those lessons too. So sometimes, as I look at the calendar, I try to guide the podcast at times around our liturgical calendar. And so September 29th is the feast of the Archangels, St. Michael, St. Gabriel, and St. Raphael. And so I thought, well, it'd be great to talk about St. Michael. A lot of people, they have a devotion to St. Michael. Lots of churches, even some dioceses, like the Diocese of Green Bay, requires the St. Michael prayer after each Mass. So there is a lot to be devoted to when it comes to St. Michael. And also, we're right on the heels of the month of the Holy Rosary. And Pope Leo XIII, he wrote many, many encyclicals on the Rosary, one every year of his pontificate, really. And in each one of those, he said, and he encouraged adding the Litany of Loretto to the end of the Rosary during the month of October. So I want to talk about both those little devotions today. And our guest today, Marge Fenelon, has written two books about these topics, one about St. Michael and the other about the Litany of Loretto. And so Marge has been a guest on the show before. She's a fellow Wisconsinite. She's written a number of books. And so I always tell her my favorite is her book, Forgiving Mother. But also another one of my favorites is her pilgrimage book, really a 9-day pilgrimage to Mary, our Queen, a living novena. So she is prolific in her output, and two books that we're talking about today that have been recently released this year. So thanks so much, Marge, for joining me.
You're very welcome. I'm grateful for the invitation, and especially right at this time, like you said, as we're coming up on the feast of Saint Michael and the Archangels. The day that this video will be releasing will be the release date of my latest book, Mother Most Powerful. So everything is working together very nicely. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Well, thanks for your willingness. We're actually just recording this the week before. Sometimes as a podcaster, I have episodes and interviews recorded for October already, but sometimes there's little holes, or one interview you thought was going to happen, just it never came together, and so then you try to fill that hole and plug it. So thanks for stepping in to do that today, but so timely as we've mentioned already. So. Now, this is called a little bit, it's not on the cover, but it's in the first few pages. And I guess, too, let me just start with this. I did give a blurb for the book. So my name is on the back of the book. And I said, Marge Fenelon helps us realize the power of St. Michael as he defends us in battle against sin. Now, the choirs of angels aid us in confronting sin, especially the 7 deadly sins, a powerful and grace-filled novena. So I make special reference to novena, 9 days. And so this is kind of written in the sense of a novena. You wrote another book that had that notion of living novena. So what do you mean by a living novena?
Living novena is something that that I came up with by the grace of God. You won't find the definition online unless you Google one of my books. But it takes this concept of novena and brings it to life. So each of I have 3 of the Living Novena books. Each of those have 9 main chapters, and each chapter is dedicated to a particular devotion, or in the case of my Queen, my Mother, and Our Lady Undoer of Knots, they were places, special places of grace. And in the case of Saint Michael book, each day, each of those 9 chapters is dedicated to one of the 9 choirs of angels. And so a living novena it's part armchair pilgrimage and part devotional. So I try very hard to take the reader along with me on this little pilgrimage through 9 days of devotion or spiritual places or all of the above.
St. Michael tends to be more or less a little controversial. I don't know why, actually. I think it's probably just little factions in the church or whatever. But of course, there are some parishes that'll pray the St. Michael prayer after Mass. Like I mentioned in the intro, in the Diocese of Green Bay, recently the bishop he decreed that Saint Michael prayer should be said in every parish. Where I had been stationed previously in Brussels, Lincoln Rosaire, I started the custom of adding the Saint Michael prayer. And one of the reasons I did so was that because one time we had a huge storm that took out a tree and fell on the church. Another time we were struck by lightning. So I just thought there was like a spiritual value to praying the St. Michael prayer. And then when I came to my new assignment where I'm at in Shawano, well, there's, good reason to pray the St. Michael prayer in this area where I live. There was kind of this cult, if you will, that kind of resides in Shawano. It has a very anti-Catholic sentiment. Freemasonry is pretty popular here in Shawano. So there's good reason to pray the St. Michael prayer as protection against evil. But yeah, you know, so when I moved from my last parish to this parish, the person that took over for a few months, he eliminated the St. Michael prayer. Did not like it. Was totally against it. Um, he loved pointing out this priest article about the placement of the St. Michael prayer and stuff. So he like undid that I instituted there. And then when I heard that the bishop was going to make this statement about the St. Michael prayer, like here I was just kind of worried that if that happened and whatnot, I'm sure it's going to be a complete elimination of it. And to my surprise, when I attended the webinar, it was the implementation of it, which made me feel a little better about it being eliminated at my old parish. Why do you think there's so much hatred? If you maybe hatred is not the right word, animosity towards the St. Michael prayer by some fellow Catholics?
And that's a great question because I've run into the same, not obviously in the same manner that you have, but it's this funny kind of skepticism. I don't know if sometimes I wonder if people are afraid of his power or afraid of him being too powerful in the church above Christ or Mary. That's not even, I don't think that would do it. It's a very strong prayer, as is the chaplet. And it's very, I think it reminds us of our sinfulness and the real dangers of evil. And I think that gets people a little skittish.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right there. That kind of makes sense a little bit. But then, so we have the animosity towards the St. Michael prayer. But then I think your book has been proof of the fact that there is a great interest in St. Michael. Like, haven't they done several runs of printing of this already? Like it's sold out after the first run, so they did the second run. So like there's been a great response to this book of yours, walking us through kind of devotion to St. Michael. So I think it also shows us that people are interested and they do believe in it. So while we have the one, we also have the other as well.
Exactly. And I'm so humbled because it's never me. It's never what I do. It's always what God does through me. And needless to say, St. Michael helped me an awful lot in writing that book. But yes, in less than a month, I think it was about the 3 week mark, where they sold completely out of the first run. And they actually had, everybody was putting on their sites back ordered, even Amazon. And I panicked a little. And I'm like, when are you going to get more in? Because people are knocking at my door. And yes, now it's well into its second printing. In fact, I want to contact the publisher today and find out where we're at, because I've been watching the rankings on the various sites that sell the book, and it's been consistently toward the top. And I'm just, as I said, I'm so humbled. I never in the world thought this book would be selling this well, but you're absolutely right. And I keep hearing from people over and over again with thank yous or little insights that they gained from the book, because again, by the grace of God, in my research and in the way that the Holy Spirit led me to put the book together, I was able to open up that world of angels for people to understand who and what they really are. They're not those little Valentine's Day cherubs that you see on the Valentine cards. I mean, these are powerful creatures, and their purposes are so specific. I was blown away when I was doing the research, because I thought I knew a decent amount being a cradle Catholic, and I'm realizing, oh, I know nothing. I have
Mm.
so much to learn about the angels, and so
Yeah.
I shared as much as I could in this book.
Yeah, so the book is a great reminder of what we say in the creed, that we believe in the visible and the invisible. So the angels are invisible to us, that there are spiritual realities, that there is, spiritual warfare. And I think that probably is one of the reasons the book is popular. People are aware of the battle between good and evil. And so they are curious about that. Of course, you mentioned there's a lot to learn. So, I don't know who all you turn to, but there's lots of different sources out there. Like, I remember I wrote a paper on angelology from the perspective of the Summa Theologiae from
Mhm,
St. Thomas Aquinas. So you could have
mhm,
recourse there. There's strong
mhm.
traditions about St. Michael in the church. So there is a lot to know. And one of the things you do, and you pair the 9 days with the 9 choirs of angels. And now I have some inkling that this is somehow connected to the St. Michael chaplet or something like that. Like,
Yes.
don't you greet each one of the choirs of angels in the St. Michael chaplet?
Yes. So the Saint Michael chaplet is, it looks similar to a rosary, but not quite so. So there are 9 decades, if you will. They're actually called invocations, because it's not 10 Hail Marys um in between. It's actually 3. But each of these invocations, I wish I wish I had remembered to bring my St. Michael chaplet into the interview with me. Each of those addresses a particular angel, and in each of those invocations, so if you're thinking akin to a rosary decade, each one asks for a particular grace from that choir of angel, because as I said, a few minutes ago, they're very specific in the tasks that God has given them, their characteristics and their tasks. And so it's set up, the chaplet, that you are asking for, to use more modern terms, their specialty. So,
Okay.
it's like going to a specialist for medical needs. We've got these angel specialists. So it's a beautiful, oh, it's just, I know there are a number of recorded versions online and in the various Catholic apps. It's truly beautiful to listen to, and to be able to think about these angels and what they are, not only able to, but commissioned to do for us from God.
And so in the book, one of the things you do is you connect it also to the 7 deadly sins. So obviously there are 9 days, so you have to do something different with 2 of those days. But
Mhm.
but why make that connection? Is that one of the specialties of the angels, and the choir named is kind of the confrontation with that deadly sin?
It is, it's not specifically mentioned in the chaplet itself, but when I would read these invocations, for me, it was a bit like reading between the lines. It was like, oh, okay, I think they could be talking about envy here, or pride, or all of the deadly sins. So, and if it was aimed, if it originally, my thinking is, if it was originally structured with the purpose of the deadly sins, and of course then it wouldn't have been 9, for the 9 choirs, but it made sense to me. The simple answer to that is, it made sense to me to match those deadly sins with those specific invocations.
Yeah, and of course, it's just another layer. So it's kind of like layer upon layer of like
Mhm.
learning the Catholic faith. And how many people out there can name the 9 choirs of angels? Now, I could probably get close, but I don't think I could get, to all of them. But in the prayers of the church, like in the preface, we'll talk about thrones, dominions, angels, archangels, the seraphim, the cherubim. So I think I'm at 6. So I missed 3, but um, but we don't know them. So this book, as they're praying 9 days, they're learning the choirs of angels. Who knows the 7 deadly sins? Maybe we look at a examination of conscience and it helps us. But
Mhm.
you're helping them to know and identify and be more aware of the presence of the 7 deadly sins in their life. So that's another aspect too. So not only is this prayerful, but it's catechetical. It's spiritually engaging in so many respects.
Well, thank you. And above all, what I really wanted to do with this book is offer hope, because it's no secret that our times are a little bit chaotic, to say the least. And we can, I I think if you open your eyes wide, and maybe you don't even have to open them that wide, you can really see the effects of evil in our society, in our world. And I wanted to offer people, to use a military term, a weapon,
Yeah.
something that they could really feel they could fight with, and that they could fall back on when the battle gets really rough. And so that was my whole goal. You're not lost. Yeah, there's a lot of wicked things out there, but St. Michael himself appeared to a Portuguese nun in the 1700s and taught her the chaplet and said, please spread this to the world. I mean, this comes directly from St. Michael, and he's giving us this weapon to
Mm.
fight against evil. That's, for me, that's incredibly hopeful, that we don't just stand there and get knocked aside by by the powers that shouldn't be, and really be able to stand firm.
Yeah. So one of the things that happens in the rosary is that everybody kind of has their own like little rosary customs. Of course, we know kind of how you pray the rosary: 1 Our Father, 10 Hail Marys, a Glory Be, the Fatima prayer, etc. You announce the mysteries, but at the end, you have the Hail Holy Queen, the prayer after the rosary. Some know it, but then people like adding prayers. For me, I typically will add the Memorare. I sometimes add the St. Michael prayer. I can't say I always do it, only because like I say it at mass, and so like I've already like I have it incorporated. So for me, I don't feel an urgency to pray it then. Maybe I should, but I like praying the guardian angel prayer, because if I don't do it then, I don't know when I would do it. And then sometimes I usually end, just because with Mother Angelica on the rosary on television, she would always say like, may the divine assistance remain always with us, and may the souls of the faithful depart through the mercy of God rest in peace. And so just kind of like learning from Mother Angelica when I was a little teenage boy watching it on EWTN, that's kind of just stayed with me. But
Mhm.
then you have Pope Leo the 13th, and he says, add the Litany of Loretto. And so, like, especially in the month of October. And so that's the subject of your new book that's coming out just today, as this is releasing. So the Litany of Loretto is also known in common parlance as the Litany of the Blessed Virgin Mary. So Loretto is where there's a house of Mary in Italy. So probably that's one of the origins of the Litany of Loretto. But the Litany of the Blessed Virgin goes through, titles of Mary. Mary as mother, Mary as like most. So like like the title of your book, Mary Most Powerful, Mary Most Pure, Mary Most whatever. So,
Mhm.
and then it goes, biblical titles. So like the mystical rose, or Tower of David, House
Mhm.
of Gold. Then you have queenly or regal titles for Our Lady too. So, what inspired you to do this new book on the Litany of Loretto?
Well, I've always loved the litany of, I know it sounds kind of cliche, but I really have. I've always loved the sound of, even though I've never been able to memorize it like some people I know. Um, I I've loved the rhythm to it, and the beauty, and the being able to think of all the different titles. But really, this was our Sunday visitor came to me, and they had, I can't take credit for the idea. They were looking for a book, a devotional on the Litany of Loretto, and I'm so humbling. But they said as soon as that came up in the editorial meeting, one name came up for everybody, and that was my name. So I guess the Blessed Mother wanted me to write this book. So I'm grateful to the Blessed Mother. But that's really how it started. And I needed to think about it for a little bit, because there are 54 titles. And that is a lot, because they wanted not only a devotional where it would be, inspiration, but they wanted origins of the various titles. They wanted some historical background. They wanted some doctrine, and the whole nine yards. And I thought 54 research projects. But when I let's put it this way, the Blessed Mother wouldn't let me back down. I just knew in my heart, it was like, okay, Mom, yes, I will absolutely do this for you, Mother, but you just have to please stick in there and just stay with me, because it's going to be a tough one. And
Sure.
at times it was, because some of these titles, they're just there in a sense. And so to try to dig up and figure out where it might come from, or what I could tie it to in scripture or elsewhere. But in the end, I was so grateful, because again, in you're an author too, Father. I'm sure as you write a book, you learn so much, because if you want it to be right, you want to do all the research.
Oh yeah, most definitely. Um, yeah, I wish I knew you were writing it. I probably could have pointed you to some resources, of course, like the collection of Marian masses. Some of these titles are there's masses to them in the collection, so they have like a beautiful little history at the beginning of each of the masses. And one of the things I know from roaming libraries, and especially roaming the Mary section, is that there are, back in the 30s and 40s and, many decades ago, there were lots of books, and maybe you visited one of those libraries like at St. Francis or at
Hmm.
Mundelein. But
Hmm.
there are lots of books out there of people that have in the past. So what you're doing is really bringing it to the contemporary age, like, yeah,
Yes.
you could go find a book that's out of print, not available anymore, look at it, but now
Hmm.
you're kind of renewing that for this next generation of Catholics and introducing a litany that maybe they don't know about.
Yes, and you're right. And it's interesting how many in the past there were. You're right, the 20s and 30s, and I even ran into a book or two that were before that. But I wasn't finding many books in more contemporary times. So uh, now I understand why the Blessed Mother really wanted this. But I tried very hard not to read too much of those other meditation books, because I didn't want my heart to be swayed
Oh, sure.
in that direction. Not that I didn't think they were quality, because they were, but I wanted to make sure that I was listening very carefully to what it was the Blessed Mother wanted me to write here and now, and not be too influenced by the other writers.
Yeah, that's interesting. I know I've had that experience as a writer, like when you're researching something and you're like, I know this person has done something maybe a little similar, And I'm like, I don't want to read it. I don't want to know what they did. I just
Mhm.
want to do my thing, you know? And so,
Yeah,
so it's
yeah,
like you want to be independent in that sense and
right.
not swayed, as you said, influenced. So there are 54 different titles, different invocations that are in the Litany of Loretto. And I know that Pope Francis, he's liked adding things. So during the year of St. Joseph, he added some titles to the Litany of St. Joseph.
Mhm.
And he recently added titles also to the Litany of Loretto. So
Mhm.
Mater Misericordia, or Mother of Mercy,
That's right.
and then
Mhm.
Mater Spei, which means Mother of Hope, and then Solatium Migratium, which means Comfort of Migrants. So those are three titles that Pope Francis felt should be added to the Litany of Loretto. Did you focus, or did you include those? I guess since they're the newest ones.
I did include them, and I like them. I like the titles. I didn't draw specific attention um, that they were added by Pope Francis, not because it's not a valid reason, but because I wanted to keep the flow of the
Sure.
book going. So, the reader may not spot that, but yes, I definitely did, because I wanted it, again, like we said, I wanted it to be a contemporary book, a contemporary version of the Litany of Loretto. So, and again, I learned some new things. I knew of the titles, but I hadn't dug into them. So this was a
Sure.
great opportunity to really look at why and what he was doing there with those titles.
And if my memory serves correctly, um, there the more recent additions to the Litany of Loretto would have been maybe Queen of Families and Queen of Peace. I think those were two of the later additions. So it's not like the Litany of Loretto has been untouched previously and Pope Francis did something
Mhm.
unprecedented, but that
Right.
this has been something that has happened in years past, where a title of Mary might emerge, that maybe we
Mhm.
need that title now. So I think what's interesting too, there's 54 titles. So a lot of people make a big deal about the 54-day rosary novena. So maybe you could
Huh?
somehow attach that with that, I don't know. But the reality too is there are lots of other titles of Mary that are not in the Litany of Loretto. For
Mhm.
example, for you, behind you is an image of the Shunstop Mary,
Mhm.
who is called Mother Thrice Admirable, right? And that's
Right.
not a title that's in the Litany of Loretto. So,
Right.
so there are
Right.
lots of other titles. So, um, and I think too, it's important, and maybe you've experienced this, or I promise you, as you go out and you speak about the titles of Mary, like there's going to be confusion. People are going to ask you, like, why are there so many different titles? And they think that there are all these different Virgin Madonnas, like, but it's really one Mary. I always say all
Mhm.
of these titles participate in the oneness of Mary as Mary of Nazareth,
Mhm.
but so how do you explain the titles about one person?
Well, they're reflective of her greatness. So what always hits me when I think about this, all of these titles and the different shrines and places, is it's one mom with all of these children. And in a natural family, and the mother's listening to this, I think they'll get what I'm moving toward. You're not the same mother to each of your children, because your children are different. I mean, you're still you. I'm still Marge, no matter what. But I treat my children differently because their needs are different, and their reactions and so forth. And I apply that to the Blessed Mother. So look at how many people are in the world, how many people God has created. So there's a place in her heart for all of these different people. And she moves toward them in the way that will most spark their heart. So all of these titles are reflective of the absolute magnitude and breadth of her motherhood.
Yeah, and they really speak to, I think, as well, like different aspects of who Mary is and her titles, and like I mention a lot of times about her helping titles. So
Mhm,
from the days of the Shrine of Our Lady of Good Help. So her help is good. Her help is prompt, prompt succor.
mhm,
She is the help of Christians. And so you have all of these different, so that's a helping title. And
mhm,
then you have the motherly titles, or you have the virginal titles, and so they kind of just help us understand who she is in the big picture of everything.
mhm,
And the fact is that Mary is the Immaculate Conception, that she encompasses, for example, all of the virtues or all the goodness of God, because she's without sin. And so, like, she is the perfection of all of these titles too. So the book is called Virgin Most Powerful, which is a popular title of Our Lady. I think people like that idea of powerful, that she
mhm,
she is powerful with God.
mhm.
So was it intentional to call it that because that's your favorite title from the Litany of Loretto, or is there a different title that stands out to you?
It I would say it was my choice. I was very grateful. I they asked me, what are you thinking now for a title and cover?" And the first thing that came to my head was, whatever we do, we need to show her as powerful,
Hmm.
because she's not this timid, meek, mousy little girl that sometimes she's portrayed to be. Oh, sure, she was meek and she was humble and she was God's complete servant. But I don't really see her that way. I see her as being a very powerful woman, because Christ has given her power, so to speak, to fill in the blank. I mean, distribute graces and fight demons and all of these things.
She's the one
So
that crushes the head of the serpent.
absolutely. So I wanted that. I really wanted that. And I do like Virgin Most Powerful from the Litany of Loretto, because I've heard that that is the title. I've seen interviews with exorcists that is the title that the devil most fears. And so with my bit of choleric temperament, I'm always up for a good fight against the devil. So I do like that one very much. But then we didn't want to take a title that was specifically from the litany. So then they suggested Mother Most Powerful, which blended the motherhood, which was also a
Oh,
request of mine, and then the powerful aspect of our Blessed Mother. And as soon as they came up with that, I loved it. It was the for me the perfect blend. So that is where the title came from.
well, that's great. So, definitely, you have two books out now. So the Saint Michael one, and then Mother Most Powerful. So, as you just mentioned, battle against evil, what have you. So they kind of almost go hand in hand in a sense. But these two devotional books out there now to really help people to appreciate Saint Michael and to come to know and to love the many different titles of Mary. So I know for myself, when it comes to titles of Mary, I think that there are titles that maybe creep into your life and they're stronger at one point. I see this with the saints too. That, like,
Mhm,
I might have a devotion to a saint right now, but I won't in 2 years. But right now, it's the title, it's the saint for me right now. And I bet
mhm,
as people uncover your book and as they read the 54 different reflections, that they're going to discover that for themselves. That this is the title I need today, and then maybe a title in a few weeks. They'll have recourse. They'll recall again. So
mhm.
yeah, beautiful works that you have contributed, and they're both published by different publishers. St. Michael is with the Marian Press, and Mother Most Powerful with Our Sunday Visitor. So people can get the copies directly from the publisher. And if they want to learn more about you and your writing, your speaking as well, and all the other things you do, where do you direct them online?
MargeFenelon.com.
Okay. And yeah, give her a follow over on social media and acquire these books and see what they can do for your spiritual life. Well, thanks so much, Marge, for your time today.
You're welcome, Father.
If you liked today's episode, be sure to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you're listening. And don't forget to stay up to date with what Father Edward is doing by following him on Facebook, X, or Instagram at the handle @FrEdwardLooney. Thanks for listening, and please join Father Edward again next time for another inspiring conversation.